I think it's fair to say that probably means the end of Usman Khawaja's Test career.
If he wins the toss, it's like, I'm not going to be NASA saying, like, we'll be having a bat in the 36-degree heat.
Sorry that Dan didn't give you his mic, by the way, Cam.
Code Sports always look after me. I love it. Whenever I come on to the show, it's fine. It's wonderful. I like it.
Welcome to the Code Cricket Show, brought to you by Edgell. We're here at Adelaide Oval on the eve of the third Test match, joined here, as often am, by Ben Horne and again by Cam Ponsonby from The Athletic, who very kindly has joined us. And Ben, we have an Australian team and it doesn't feature Usman Khawaja, and I think it's fair to say that probably means the end of Usman Khawaja's Test career.
It looks that way, Dan. Yeah, I mean, it was a big decision for Australia for that reason. That essentially they were deciding whether Usman's career would continue or not. It was an interesting one. I mean, I think a lot of people had started to convince themselves that they might find a place for him in this Test. So I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. But look, in the end, I think it's a sensible decision in the sense that you see the momentum that Australia has had with Weatherald and Head at the top of the order, and I think it's more about that than it is a comment on Usman necessarily. That unfortunately, when you get injured for a game and you're about to turn 39 years of age, if someone else comes in and takes their opportunity, it's hard to come back, and there's been so many examples of that with players in the past. So yeah, big decision for Australia. Important to recognise if this is the end for Usman. He has really played a stellar role for Australia, particularly I think over the last 4 years. I mean, obviously he's had a long career that stretches back a long time now, but I think what he's done in his second life as an opener has been quite exceptional, really.
Yeah, look, 85 tests, 16 centuries. He turns 39 on Thursday, which is a fact that's got a fair workout this week, which it's not unreasonable. And as you touched on, that 2022 and first half of 2023 period, and this is across tours of a lot of different places. Outstanding in Pakistan, or unbelievable in Pakistan. Very good in India, at home, and then in that first Test win at Edgbaston. Cam, I suppose from an English perspective, do you think they will be? I want to touch on the Australian middle order. Do you think England would prefer to face Josh Inglis at number 7, or would they have preferred Bo Webster or Usman Khawaja, say, in the middle order? What do you make of Australia's middle order?
I think coming into the series, England had potentially, rightly or wrongly, identified Khawaja as potentially a weakness up top, especially when Mark Wood was fit. There's that kind of, not quite iconic, but famous dismissal from the 23 Ashes where Wood's just gone straight through Khawaja for pace. And you kind of saw Khawaja tailing off a little bit in his returns. That you thought, actually, maybe this is an opportunity for England to have Khawaja paired with Weatherald as a rookie, and it would be their chance to get into the series. I think the Travis Head experiment obviously worked incredibly well in Perth, and it just feels, from a personal point of view, it feels like a more solid 11 now that you have that Carey and Inglis at 6 and 7, whichever way round they will bat. I got the sense that if Khawaja had come back in, that would have just been kind of a move backwards, as it were, which feels bizarre to say because Khawaja has been such a fantastic player, but I think Australia have got it right.
Sorry that Dan didn't give you his mic, by the way, Cam.
Code Sports always look after me. I love it. Whenever I come on to the show, it's fine. It's wonderful. I like it. It looks nice.
Who are you anyway? You just come off the street and just brought your own mic.
That's all well and good.
England has... I'm always... Actually, just as an aside, England and this Bazball penchant for naming the team 2 days out. Why do you think they do it?
I think it's a bit of a... I think the thinking is they tell the team fairly early and it will just leak, basically. Someone will find out, and once they've decided on it, they're just going to let people know. It's always been quite funny kind of seeing the final moments when they do it. I remember in India 2024, beginning of last year, I was doing the pre-match interviews for TalkSport, UK radio station, and you'd be sat on the boundary 2 days out from a game with your camera set up. Stokes and McCullum would go out into the middle, they'd have a look and they'd go, right, that's the team then, and they'd come over and they'd tell you about like 3 minutes later, and you kind of saw the brains trust working. That's pretty much it. And it's one of those things where I think the journalists, when we're being sensible, we go, you probably could not tell your opposition what you're going to do, but then from a work point of view, I think people find it quite helpful to have something to write about.
Oh, I'd love it.
How the sausage is made. one change though
Yeah.
for England, and which is not a lot when you consider what's happened to England so far this series. And I think it'd be fair to say that there were plenty of options on the table for them, and there's been a lot of debate. But the lone change of Josh Tongue coming in for Gus Atkinson, what did you make of that particular change? And I suppose more to the point of the decision to stick fat with most of the 11.
So Josh Tongue, kind of high-pace bowler, not quite as quick as Mark Wood. Maybe sometimes that is very fast, is similar to Jofra Archer. He's kind of a wicket taker. His kind of it's held against him a little bit in a kind of humorous way that he's rabbit pie. He kind of cleans up the tail at the end. And I think they're basically going, we needed to freshen up slightly. Gus Atkinson can be a bit of a line and length bowler. Let's bring in a bit more X factor despite slightly weakening the batting. I think the main headline from a broader picture for England is the fact that they've stuck with Will Jacks over Shoaib Bashir, because Bashir, along with Zach Crawley, has been the project. He's been the golden boy who was plucked from obscurity and basically played for 2 years with this series and, more to the point, this match in mind. And it's probably a really quite difficult week for Bashir, because his last 2 years of life has been building towards this moment, and now when push has come to shove, they've decided to not kind of cash in on that project, and they've stuck with Will Jacks, who's a very fine off spinner in the context of being a part-time off spinner.
Yes,
but he's not necessarily a full-time bowler.
And it's really limited England with the amount of options that they have now. I mean, if they've basically decided that Bashir's unselectable on this tour, you know, it really kind of robs them of another option in their squad, particularly, as you say, when they're 2-0 down. But Dan, I was interested in your opinion on Travis Head as an opening batsman. I mean, that was the one avenue that I thought perhaps Australia might go back to Usman, is if the selectors decided that, look, we know he's done a great job in the first 2 tests, but we don't really see Travis Head as a long-term opener. You know, do you feel that he is a long-term opener, or do you feel that this is a match-up for England alone?
I think the jury's out. Sorry, there's a real sit in the fence, but I'm not sure they know. And I think it will hinge on what happens clearly over the next couple of tests, and then I suppose perhaps in the few months beyond. I think the thing here is that because it's the Ashes and it is such an enormous series, and it is just about winning this particular series, you're not trying to look too far into the future. And Australia does not play another test until August against Bangladesh. Now, they have a lot of test cricket coming up straight after that, in that 14 or so month period after that 21 tests or so. But there's no urgency to be locking in a long-term duo. What there is, I suppose at 2-0 up, there's not that much urgency for anything. You can sit back. But, not to be too flippant, there is urgency to make sure that they lock down this series and win it as convincingly as possible. And I think in terms of, it probably goes back to what Cam says, who would England least like to face at the moment? I think it's Head and Weatherall. They've just taken on, particularly when they've got so much pace in this England attack, taking it back to them. Look, I think with Head, I'm sure at a certain point at the rest of the series, there'll be a stage where it'll be ugly, because when it doesn't work for Travis Head and his defence can be a bit so-so, and it can look pretty flaky. We even saw on the nets where he's notoriously not a very good net player, but it looked a bit, not sure about him against the new ball. But I think the collective, it was when you weigh that all up, it was worth doing. One other talking point ahead of this test is England and its maybe approach to banter, its sledging or lip, or whatever you want to talk about it, whichever word you want to use. Ben, is that your sense out of the England press conference with Ben Stokes?
Yeah, definitely. I think he said that if there's a bit of niggle happening, we'll be in there and we'll be backing up whichever players involved. So, if Jofra Archer, for example, is continuing on his little set two with Steve Smith, you can imagine England getting right behind that. I mean, I think England will come out that way. I think they have to. I think if I was England, I'd be really trying to put Jake Weatherall under a lot of pressure. I think, they have to look back to how Archer dominated Weatherall in that first test. And just, if they can get Weatherall early and get Australia under a bit of scoreboard pressure early, that's their chance. And, as you say, if they can get rid of Weatherall and Head early, then let's see how we go, with Josh Inglis coming in the middle order, and there's no Travis Head coming in to save the day. So England, they have to start well. It's going to be 30-something degrees on the, as high as 38 degrees, I think, on possibly the first, second, third day of the test. So it's not going to be a fun time to be bowling, but England just have to create some damage early.
I think it's a genuine strategy of England to kind of almost artificially inject some not jeopardy, but a bit of niggle between the two teams. Ben Stokes, the emotion I think he's been portraying the most over the last week or so is like surprise and a bit of like confusion that these people that he's backed all the way have kind of buckled in the face of the pressure. He's like, but this is my arena, this is when I feel most at home. We've backed you for so long. It's got a bit scary. Travis Head's played some shots. Jamie Smith has dropped a catch, and the Brisbane and the Gabba's taken the mick out of him. Where's the fight been?
Yeah.
And so he spoke to us yesterday as the UK press, and he was saying that they'd spoken as a team about the kind of mentality they'd managed to get against India at Lords over the English summer, where it kind of came from a 2-over segment at the end of the day, which Crawley and Duckett had to see out. Crawley managed to extend that 1 over for long enough that they got back inside, and they, as a group, decided that they were going to go at India. And they're like, this is the kind of intensity that, to borrow kind of Virat Kohli's quote, like, make it hell, or whatever it was. And England want to recreate that now. It's been quite interesting from a UK journalist perspective, having followed these guys for so long, who've had the same message kind of ad nauseum of kind of uber positivity. Maybe they're slightly refining a bit, but for the most part, back your processes. We're saying the way we play, we're sticking to our guns. And then now, biggest match of kind of Ben Stokes' captaincy, and it's, I want to see more fight, like rein it in, Harry Brook, and there has been a kind of change of pace from the England team when confronted with the big one.
Do you think there's some intelligence to that? I mean, obviously, when you look at the scoreline, you'd have to suggest there probably is. But you look at Australia's attack, Dan. Pat Cummins coming back, hasn't played a game of cricket since July. He's coming in off no matches at all. There's been a big break since Brisbane, but Scott Boland and Mitchell Starc have played the 2 tests so far. There were signs towards the end of Brisbane that those guys were tiring a bit. Cameron Green, with his injury troubles, probably not someone that you can ask to go in and, put the short ball tactic to use anymore. So if England can play the long game and play a long innings, they can, I think, put Australia under some physical pressure. I mean, I know that that's what any team should be aiming to do in a test match, but hasn't generally been England's plan.
I've just seen them nick off so much. I can't imagine watching them bat for 100 overs to get 350, let alone kind of 400. I'm fascinated to see what this kind of reined-in England approach is going to be, and I always feel a bit sorry for them if it does work, because you'll get the whole of like the has-beens, as Ben Stokes once accidentally called him, being like, we told you all along. Whereas it would absolutely be, well, he joked about it earlier today, kind of, if he wins the toss, it's like, I'm not going to be Nasser Hussain, like, we'll be having a bat in the 36-degree heat.
The biggest, I think the Australian player who is under the most pressure this week, and the spotlight should now most be on, especially with Usman Khawaja now out of the side, is Nathan Lyon. 38, hasn't taken a wicket in Test cricket in any of Australia's last 3 tests. Now, he didn't play in 2 of them. The other one he bowled 2 overs, but there has been a clear, now, as much as he says he's got nothing to prove, and you take him at his word, there's now been a clear move to show that he is marginalised within this Australian setup. At least they see him that he can be surplus to needs. There's a world in which Australia succeeds without Nathan Lyon. It's been proven several times now. So I think he's under the pump this week. I think he'll be desperate to deliver. And he's a very proud cricketer, and he's had an incredible career. But he is 38. And I know he's a spinner, and obviously they can go on longer, but he wouldn't want to put in a bad one, because I think that's when the talk will start to come. Particularly, they've dropped you've got to remember, they dropped Michael Neser for him on the back of a fifer. So if things don't go well for Nathan Lyon, it's not that there's huge serious pressure on him, because Australia obviously has that 2-match buffer, but it's a big week for him. The other thing just worth noting clearly, as I touched on yesterday, there'll be tributes to the Bondi victims, and as I said, there's a pall cast over this match. Ben, Cricket Australia has sort of outlined some of the details of that.
Yeah, that's right, Dan. I mean, you might be more across it than me, but I know there'll be black armbands being worn by the teams through the test, and it'll be acknowledged before play. And look, it's I remember being here, completely different circumstance, but the first match of cricket after Phil Hughes died, and that was probably the most emotional I've ever felt at a test match. It was a really moving experience to be here before play, and I imagine it could be a similar feeling before this test, obviously under different circumstances, but this is a story that I think has rocked the whole country, and it's an emotional time for everyone that lives in Australia.
From an English perspective, Cam, in 2005, mind you, I'm mindful that you're quite a young guy, but the London bombings occurred not long before that Ashes series. So, a similar sort of backdrop with terror, nearby. So there are some parallels there.
Yeah, I think everyone touring here is very aware that it's an enormous. It's one of the greatest tragedies in Australian history, and that it's one of the biggest news events. It doesn't feel like the right term, but cricket is cricket, and it's very easy to kind of get locked away in your own bubble and thinking like the Ashes is everything that's happening. But on the other side of the door, like, there is the biggest kind of story and sadness that's happening across the nation, and it's been very shocking to see.
Yeah, I think in that sense, the test is going to be welcomed because it's a distraction, if you like. It's a sense of normality that people coming to watch the test or watching on TV. This is what we do during the summer. So look, it doesn't matter in the context of what we know has happened in the last few days, but it does matter in the sense that people can feel normal and they can come and enjoy themselves at the cricket.
No, too right. Well, we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to bringing it all to you. And thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next couple of days.